welcome you to another edition of Being Well Informed. We are thrilled to have as our very special guest on this fine afternoon the Reverend Canon Randy Callender. Hello, hello, hello. How are you?
Great. Thank you, Judge Barber, for inviting me on your podcast to talk about a topic that most people are afraid to discuss.
Oh, we're not shying away from the topic of reparations, most definitely. It's more of a hot topic, and so that makes it all the more exciting to venture into it. It seems to be getting some discussion as well in terms of forming of committees in the state of Maryland. And I am thrilled to have you at this very moment to talk to my audience today about the whole topic of reparations and specifically reparation grants in Maryland. Tell us about yourself and your involvement with reparation grants.
Well, I'll step back just a little. So I was serving as the rector at St. Philip's Church in Annapolis, Maryland. And the members there at the church, we have been engaged talking about reparations, reconciliations. And one of my big message I always would push is that I would tell people, don't just tell me that you love me, show me that you love me. And so reparations is a part of that way of showing. It's a way where we're discussing about relationships and creating a bridge that is strong enough for all of us to cross over. And so now, just past Monday would mark 3 weeks, I have been called as the canon for mission in the Diocese of Maryland, where I get to do more work with the Reparations Committee that I have been serving on for a while now in the Diocese of Maryland. So just to share a little bit of history of that, we all know there's a long history of discrimination that has an economic impact on Black people and have made it extremely difficult for the population to achieve wealth. The history goes all the way back in the Episcopal Church, where in 1952, the church passed a resolution stating that the church must consistently oppose and combat discrimination in the church. And then you can go past that from 1952 to even leading up to where we are today. We're back in 2019. Our Bishop Eugene Sutton, he wrote a pastoral letter intended for the whole diocese, the Episcopal Church in Maryland, to outline this vision of becoming the beloved community. We talk about becoming this beloved community. And in that letter, he talked about we have to repair what is broken. And he talked about this monetary compensation that we have to give back. So he talked about an act of reparation. And when you think about this, the Diocese of Maryland is, the Episcopal Church is a predominantly white church. So when you having this conversation about reparations, how will people respond?
What is the response?
Well, the funny thing, well, not funny, but very excited, is that in 2020, a year after this letter went out from our beloved bishop, unanimously, it was passed that everyone would say we started with a seed money of $1 million.
$1 million.
Resources. We started, and that's just the beginning, the seed money of $1 million. So you have all these delegates and lay leaders and clergy all coming together saying, this is important to us. Reparations is important because it's not about just money, but it's repairing the relationship. This is a way of showing our beloved siblings how much we love them, not just tell them we love them, but how much we love them. And so we've been having this conversation for a while now in the Diocese of Maryland. And as I said, from that, a task force was formed. And out of the task force, we had this reparation committee that I was from the beginning serving on, where we were looking at ways of how will we distribute this money to the Black community in Maryland, in the state of Maryland.
Right. So this is about distribution of money to certain nonprofits or individuals, or how does that work?
Well, it's nonprofits. You have organizations that are, and we have some stipulations around that, making sure that if you receive this money is going to support the Black community. We have 5 pillars that we talk about that the money has to go towards. The money has to address educational disparities. So we
Okay.
provide funding for programs that enhance educational opportunities. We talk about improving healthcare and elder care as well, to allocate resources towards, as I said, healthcare. We talk about promoting affordable housing to support initiatives that increase access to safe, affordable housing options and addressing the houses and communities of colors. We talk about environmental degradation as well, to fund projects of environmental sustainability, mitigating impact of environmental degradation in marginalized communities. And then the fifth one is fostering job creation and microeconomic investment. We talk about that, to invest programs, again, to develop within communities of color. So we believe that by focusing on these 5 pillars, we can address critical needs and contribute to the long-term well-being of the communities we serve. So
You're on a roll, my goodness. So it's, but a lot of folks, when they hear the term reparations, they often associate that with individual repayment or individual funding of people who have been damaged, harmed, descendants of those who have been have experienced injustice.
Mhm.
So how does that kind of work with this whole concept of reparation grants?
So the grant, as I said, is for organizations, not going out to individuals. That's another discussion that I'm pushing for when you talk about HR 40, which we all
Mhm.
are familiar with. But when we're pushing for individuals, that I always tell people, when it comes to reparations, if we're just jumping on individuals, would I be able to receive money personally? And the reason why I share that is because my family is from the island of Barbados. And so then people start fighting and say, well, is it just people who were family roots were born in this country or so forth?
Mhm.
But this
That
opportunity,
discussion comes up.
yeah, and people are arguing and fighting over who, as an individual, will get that money. And I always tell people that my passion and fight around reparations is not about me individually, is about a community as a whole. And so when we do this work and addressing, as I said, education, when we're addressing helping these organizations to support our young people and our seniors and people who really need those funds, it can help across the board and not just individuals. Because the individual part, yes, maybe our country needs to really do more research and education and explore that even more. But however, with the Diocese of Maryland, we look at how can we use these programs to support organizations, to support the community as a whole. Because when you support a community as a whole, you can start moving people towards, when we talk about generational wealth.
So you mentioned HR 40. Tell us about that.
Well, I'm not the expert around HR 40, but I know HR 40 uh, is a bill to establish the commission to study and develop reparation proposals for African Americans. And so that
Mhm,
commission, I believe, says that you're supposed to examine slavery and discrimination in the
mhm.
colonies of the United States, I think around the 1692, 1619 to the present, and look at different ways of looking at that form of reparation. I think with that, they're identifying the federal and state government and supporting the institution of slavery and really apologizing. Now, I know the Senate, I believe, did apologize back in, was it 2009 or 2008? Apologized for slavery, but now it's time to make amends. And that's what HR 40 is, to make sure that those amends are happening. So I know there are a few people who have been pushing that for a while to look at HR 40, which, I can say that helped me to explore more into reparations in Diocese of Maryland, but that's totally different than what we are focusing on. I believe, and again, not an expert, that I believe HR 40 is trying to address individuals, to make sure that individuals get money, African Americans to really get money from the government as they amend for the pain and that they have done to people of color in this country.
Well, the whole conversation behind reparations often starts with the harm done. Well, it doesn't always start there, but that's one of the focuses, the harm done, the impact, in terms of impact on generational wealth, impact on the fact that some families, if they were uprooted out of a community because of a massacre or something to that effect, and because of mob lynching, in that scenario, those people had to regroup and move away from an area that they should not have been required to move away from,
Mhm.
and start their life all over again,
Yeah.
and lose all of what they had behind, including their real estate if they owned it,
Mhm.
and just go into a different direction and different scenario because of the injustices. So oftentimes the discussion comes up, does reparations start with the individual, or the even the nonprofits that are largely focused on uh, these um, these injustices, because we've had the Tulsa massacre, we've had the Wilmington massacre, and we've had the whole system of convict leasing.
Mhm.
And when you speak of convict leasing and how that impacted families, these are important historic things that happen. Even when you talk about Brown versus the Board of Education and the lack of integration in the public school system, even when you look at the movie Hidden Figures and
Yes.
how the government sat there and endorsed segregated facilities on the dime of the taxpayer at that time, and shutting out practicing exclusion, shutting out qualified individuals based on race, and they had difficulty moving ahead opportunity wise in the system until it changed.
Yeah.
So you have change makers out there that are deceased now, that have been assassinated, that've been killed, and that's impacted their family, but it's also impacted society and how change has been implemented. And we're still talking about change even after George Floyd's death. You can't
Amen.
even get, you know.
Amen. Amen.
So,
Yeah.
so there's just so much that's packed into this whole concept of reparations,
Mhm.
that your grant sounds like it's an excellent start.
Yeah, and I'm glad you just said that, a great start, because we have ways to go,
Mhm,
with this, work around reparations. I mean, you talked about the history. You can just drive around anywhere in Virginia and Maryland, and you're driving on land that were plantation sites, and you talk
mhm,
about this form of moving people around from different places. And what I love about the grant is that the grant is a commitment to infuse those resources into programs that actively contribute to rebuilding and the empowerment of the Black community. So you're right, it's not given to individuals, but it's rebuilding and empowering the Black community to make sure that we get a head start, a little bit, a little push right now. So we recognize the deep-seated impact of systemic racism in Maryland. We realize it in the United States, but we are dedicated to supporting the initiatives that help us to repair the breach, as you said, caused by these injustices. And these programs have to live into that, to repair that breach and allow people of color, the Black community, to really continue to not survive but thrive as we use these funds to help them. So our main objective as a committee and with this grant, it's not to benefit the Episcopal Church, as I said. It's
mhm,
to help repair the lack of resources in our communities. And this is a way of a start. You know, what you shared and what I've heard from many people all around the country, we have ways to go. And if we don't start somewhere, then we'll never get anywhere. So this is a good start. And that's why I'm so excited and happy to be a part of the Diocese of Maryland that's pushing to make sure that this conversation stay up front and that we
mhm,
continue to put
mhm.
funds in to move forward. And there are other dioceses in the Episcopal Church that are looking to have these conversations as well.
Well, I appreciate, and there's this thunderous applause that I feel is necessary to bring this issue to the forefront, to let people know that there is a way, there is an idea, there is a thought that's being implemented here in a way that's a positive way, because this is the Episcopal Maryland reparations-grants.
Mhm.
That's the website or link that's being shown across the screen. And it is the location where one can apply for grants if they meet the objectives of this grant, which is just so powerful.
Yep, and February 15th is the deadline. So
February 15,
yes,
2024
yes,
is
yes,
the deadline,
yes.
and I'm thrilled that your congregation, your Episcopal Diocese, if I
Diocese
have
of
this
Yep,
correct,
yep, Diocese of Maryland.
planted seed money of $1 million to
Yes,
start
the
this,
start, yes.
just to start this initiative, and thrilled to learn of it, and hoping that it's going to be impactful. So how do you describe, though, this reparations grant that's different from other grant opportunities?
Well, because it's reparations and it goes particularly for our Black community. And as I said, following those 5 pillars are probably where you have to be in those areas where some of the other grants may not have those different pillars. Also, it's a grant where out of love, where we're seeing some forms of transformation. One of the recipients of the grant, I had the opportunity of going to their graduation, is a pivot program in Baltimore, and it's with our returning citizens, women who are coming home from prison. And the program actually helped these women to find jobs and to really empower them to transform their lives. And going to that graduation and hearing the stories of these women who, didn't have anyone to support them, didn't have these resources for them to get ahead, and that this program Pivot is there saying, we love you, we're going to wrap our arms around you. And in order for them to do that, they reached out, applied for the grant, received funds from the grant, and now they're continuing to move forward. And there were I think about 12 or 14 women who graduated from this program, and I could be there to say, look what this grant can do, can make a difference, not only in, as I said, individual lives, but a community of women who have been transformed out of it. So this grant for me is a way of practicing what we preach as
Yeah,
the Episcopal
yeah,
Church. This
most
grant,
definitely.
yep, this grant is a way of, as I said earlier, not just telling people, oh, I love you, showing the community how much we love them. This grant is an opportunity for us to see true change, and not only in our state, but hopefully in our country, that we can
Hmm.
start having more conversations around this. This is a way for all of us to recognize that, and I have to say that this journey towards reparation is not easy. It is not easy at all. And I'm someone, people have heard me say this over and over again. I'm comfortable feeling uncomfortable, and I'm
Okay.
comfortable making other people feel uncomfortable. And so
Well,
sometimes you got to feel uncomfortable when you're having these conversations in order to get that connection to move forward.
well, you mentioned the Pivot program,
Uh-huh.
and you cannot um, overlook, though, the fact that there's this huge disparity issue when it comes to incarceration in Maryland.
Yep.
And that goes to an important injustice.
Uh-huh.
That hits the center of the issue
Yep.
of mass incarceration, the disparity in incarceration, because we don't see the equal access to justice, or not just the equal access to justice, but the equal application
Yep.
of law enforcement for
Mhm.
everybody.
Yep.
When you have a situation where, there's more Black people arrested for drug offenses than white folks, that's a problem. That's, you just hit it right on the head and say it's
Yep.
an issue that needs to
Exactly.
be fixed, you
Exactly.
know. And yes, you have some progressive prosecutors that are on that mission to undo and vacate, let's say, marijuana sentencings that occurred, and you have progressive politicians that will work on those legislative issues that need to be addressed. But the Pivot program is there to, because people's lives are impacted. We I could not tell you how important it is, especially in the employment arena, these programs are when these people have difficulty getting jobs and moving back into society,
Yep.
because everybody doesn't want to hire them. Just be truthful about the thing. You
And
know,
that's where the grant and sorry to interrupt, but that's
yeah.
where the grant and these conversations are creating more awareness to what you're sharing right now. Because one of the things I talk about is everyone says that they're a bridge builder or everyone wants to be a bridge builder, and people build their side of the bridge. No one wants to address the big hole and the gap in the middle. And that's the issues around when we talk about the 13th Amendment or how they avoided all these loopholes, when we talk about black codes, when we talk about our African Americans, black and brown siblings who are in prison more than any other race, when we talk about not being able to get housing or healthcare, all that we're talking about is the hole that's in the middle of the bridge. No one wants to walk over or drive over a bridge that has a hole in the middle of it. And so this conversation is repairing the actual bridge. This conversation is making sure that it's a solid, strong bridge that we can cross over and move forward. And so reparations is beneficial for all of us as a country,
Mhm,
not just,
mhm.
as I said, an individual, but all of us can move forward when we start having these conversations and start addressing the issues that have been going on for far too long in our country. So now, if it doesn't happen now, when? So this is our opportunity to move forward. This is our opportunity for all of us to sit down as siblings and really have this deep, hard conversation so that we can move forward as people and we can move forward as a country.
There has been also a lot of discussion about the efforts of the Innocence Project and the Equal Justice Initiative, because they literally take people who are wrongly convicted, work on their cases, and get them released from prison.
Yeah.
And then they've got to come back into the society. And in the state of Maryland, there were about 7 people that were wrongly convicted, and the state was moving all slow about their money.
Mhm.
And you shouldn't be funny about their money. You really shouldn't.
Amen.
So it just, you just like, well, how much you sat there and the jury figured out in 2 days that Jean Carroll for defamation was worth 83 mil.
Mhm. Yep.
And now
Amen.
she was just the fame. She wasn't in prison for 20, 30, 40 years.
Yep.
You think their lives would be worth more than that
Yep.
if you understand, if you're putting this kind of in perspective here.
Yep.
But that's that again points to more work that needs to be done. There needs to be more laws that can reimburse and compensate people for wrongful convictions,
Yep.
and there should not be any discrimination by employers in hiring these folks.
Yep. You're right
And,
about that.
and it exists.
Yep.
So that again remains a concern, an ongoing concern.
Yep.
But any other areas of reparations we haven't talked about? Because I know our in Maryland, our committees are being formed, commissions are being formed to explore this important topic.
Yeah, you're right. There are a lot of conversations that are starting to happen in our state, and as I said earlier, even in the Episcopal Church outside of Maryland, there are other dioceses that are starting to have the conversation as well. And I think it's a good start. And I'm gonna keep saying that start because we still have ways to go. And the question that I have been asking people who are struggling with having this conversation is, I said, if something is broken, should we fix it?
Mhm.
Simple as that. And most people are like, yeah, well, if something in my house that is broken, we need to fix it. Well, this is something that's been broken in our house, in our country for a long time. And so it's
Right.
now time to fix it. So the conversations are addressing it. Everyone's kind of calling around to see who can come and fix it right now. That's what we're looking for right now. We're looking for the plumbers. We're looking for the construction workers, the different people to fix this bridge. And so the conversation part is important because we're starting to have it right now. But we still have ways to go to make sure this happen. I'm going to be, now that I'm the canon for mission in the Diocese of Maryland, and as I said, it's been 3 weeks that I started. My role now is to figure out what other places are having these conversations. You know,
Mhm.
as the rector at St. Philip's, I didn't have the opportunity to really expand and explore, but now I have the free range where I can go out and make sure that people are having these conversations and keep it in their hearts, minds, and souls, to make sure that we are addressing reparations in our state, in our country, and in our world.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I must invite you back again, Reverend. You have been such a delight to have on our podcast, Being Well Informed. Thank you so much for being a part of this presentation today. You served us well.
Thank you.